This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Thank you for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Jason probably is sick of me, sick of doing podcasts with the Doc each and every week. He's not joining us this week. No, I'm just kidding, Jason. I know you're listening. He's out doing the family thing. He's getting ever so close. Thank goodness, though, when he reports about his family, everything is going good with the missus. I know that he cut the podcast short last week, but everything's going good with him. He'll return to the podcast whenever he sees fit. And a guy like Jason, who at a drop of a hat will cut up sound for me, will do a lot of things that I ask, is a guy that I want around here at the network. So it's a little bit different than somebody else who comes along, tries to do a podcast, and then when things don't go right, just drops off the face of the earth. So a guy like Jason, even though he might not be on every single week, is a guy that will be around this podcast network for as long as it goes on.
Oh, wait, Jason up in here.
But Jason, get back up in here. You got me here sitting in front of a microphone all by myself in the Sterling Heights studios, trying to figure out what the heck are we going to talk about. I mean, literally, you try and scroll on Facebook, you try and see what people are going through, and before, people would post pictures of their families. They would post drama about, their marriages or their girlfriends who left them or issues with their work and things like that. But now I challenge everybody that's listening to this podcast, scroll through your Facebook page, and how many posts do you go through before somebody's talking about Donald Trump? And it's one of those things where I'm a guy that is into politics. I do follow it, but I only debate it with the people that are close to me. I don't go out there really too much and talk about my political beliefs. I do a little bit, discuss my leanings with Vito on the Too Bad Hombres podcast, but my deep down feelings, the way I view things politically, no one really knows about unless you're in my inner circle. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. I don't go on my Facebook page and try and talk about my beliefs about the whole immigration thing, my thoughts on abortion, my thoughts on education, my thoughts on race relations. I just think that social media is not the place that you go to post that kind of stuff. And for me, sports is my outlet, is my escape. Because my full-time job, the job that I'm degreed in, the job that I feel like I'm destined to do, is I'm a psychologist. And so I hear a lot of stressful things day in and day out, and sports is my outlet. The talk of the town now is whether or not athletes, coaches, things like that, should they be involved in talking about issues related to Donald Trump? Should they be out there trying to discuss their own personal feelings via their platforms? And it's discussed quite a bit because, you see at this point in time, the beginning part of the year is a time where a lot of these, celebrities will have, award shows. They'll have celebrations where they get to kind of, go up to the microphone and talk to the entire nation. And some actors and actresses have decided to use that platform to discuss their thoughts about Donald Trump. And I was of the opinion, and I said it on the Too Bad Hombres podcast, and my feelings and thoughts were that that's just not the place to go and talk about those kind of feelings and things like that. Is that, Meryl Streep is a great actress, but when she accepts a Lifetime Achievement Award, I want to know some of the things that kind of led up to her kind of becoming the great actress that she was. Who does she thank? How did she come about to be one of the most revered actresses in the entire world? I'm not really too interested in her political leanings. Now, mostly I can assume that once she started talking at her acceptance speech that she was a liberal and somebody that was, kind of at this point in time not with the policies of Donald Trump. And that's fine. Everybody is entitled to their own political beliefs. And I enjoy having conversations with all different kind of people, whether you're left-leaning, whether you're ultra-conservative, whether you're independent, whether you're a hippie and you're telling me that marijuana should be legal 24/7. I like to discuss things with people, and I think the starting point is, no judgments. I try not to judge too many people. Now, of course, thoughts will run through my head, and they are kept private. That's why we're all entitled to our own private thoughts. But the problem is with social media is the filter between what's in our brain and what's coming out of our mouth and what's going out to social media has been basically wiped away. Many people do not have a filter, and so whatever they're thinking politically, whatever they're thinking about the current topic of the day is something that they just decide to spout out there. And it's one of those things for me where I get to see a lot of it on Facebook because I have a lot of friends, for the podcast. So on the podcast side of things, I do get to see what, the pulse is of the country because I have friends, that have added me from all over the country, not just in Michigan. And so many people are up in arms regarding Donald Trump, and they feel the need to express it. And for me, my outlet to try and get relief from the stressful days that I have is through sports. And as you can tell, as I'm doing like 4 or 5 hours of podcasting a week, I enjoy kind of just turning on a microphone and talking with my friends about what's going on in the world of sports, and from time to time, give my opinions on what's going on out there in the real world. It's hard when you go to the places that are your escapes, movies, award shows, entertaining shows, when you hear a press conference after a tough game, and the topics are not why the team is struggling, or the topic is not how this actress or actor got to the point where they are in an acceptance speech, or who they're thanking, whether it be their agent or their best friend. That's not what's being talked about. You can't, at this point in time, go 5 minutes without talking about Donald Trump. I'm a guy with a severe receding hairline, okay? So my haircuts when I go to the barbershop are pretty simple. I either go to a Great Clips or a place called Cheap Cuts, and I go and I sit down, and it's real simple. It's either a 2.5 all over, quick 2-3 minute job, and I'm out the door, okay? But sometimes they want to fix up the sideburns, they want to taper up the back or something like that, and we'll have a little bit of time to chit-chat. My last couple of haircuts, inevitably, the conversation has turned to Donald Trump. And people will say, hey, did you hear about Donald Trump and what he did with this? Or, hey, did you hear about Donald Trump and what do you think about that? And people kind of respect my opinion on it, but I give everybody the same answer. If you're not in my close inner circle of friends, I'm not telling you my political beliefs because, one, I don't know if you're some psychopath and are going to flip out on me if I tell you what I think. Or two, I don't really want to have a conversation about politics with people that I don't know. And so it's one of those things where if I felt comfortable with you and we're friends and we're having a cocktail or we're smoking hookah or we're, having some laughs beforehand, then, inevitably the conversation will naturally turn to politics. But my opinion is politics should only be discussed amongst people that support each other and can have a great debate and have solid discussions. Nowadays, I don't know if people can have those because emotions are involved. People have their own solid agendas, and they're very passionate about what they're talking about. And for me, I'm never really going into a discussion trying to convince somebody of my point of view. I'm just going into a conversation hoping to share what I believe from my experiences and why I think my point of view is a little bit, better than maybe their point of view. But it's always in a sarcastic kind of tone, but it's never really all that serious. When others get offended, when others get hurt, or when others feel the need to kind of, take things to the next level, it makes it really hard to have a real conversation. Nowadays, everybody has an opinion on Donald Trump. I don't know if anybody is really neutral on the man because either you're a strong supporter and you voted for him or you detest the ground that he walks on. And so for a guy like me, I know where I can find my political shows on TV. I'm either going to go to CNN or I'm going to go watch Fox News. There's one of those two channels that I'm going to flip through and watch one of the particular shows if I find the host to be engaging or otherwise. But for me, I was always kind of taught that you can form your own opinions by gathering the facts, looking at things based upon how I was raised and what I believe, and forming a solid opinion that I could go out and discuss with people. I never looked to an athlete. I never looked to a role model, outside of my home or outside of my own brain. When people say athletes or actors or people that are famous should come out here and tell me how I think. I just never really valued their opinion on politics because, one, I didn't know if they had an agenda. Two, I don't really know their story and where they're from and how they came to form that opinion. It's just one of those things where I believe that politics should be talked about in the privacy of your own home. And so when people say, people have taken the phrase, hey, just stick to sports when talking about coaches and talking about actors and people in the public eye, it is kind of offensive because, yes, they are a human being and they are entitled to speak their mind. But here in Detroit, the individual that's talking the most is Stan Van Gundy. And many people are interested in what he has to say because he's so outspoken, and people are going to him now after he came out and kind of revealed his thoughts about Donald Trump, his dissatisfaction with some of the policies that have started to take place and things like that. So people want to go to Stan Van Gundy and get his honest opinion. And, I don't want to say to Stan Van Gundy, stick to sports, but I really want to say stick to sports because here's the reason why I believe that Stan Van Gundy should really just focus on being the president of the Pistons and really publicly just go about his business trying to coach the team. For me, I'm an individual that looks to sports as an outlet, as an escape, okay? I'm a guy that likes to watch competition. I like sports. I like when teams go at it. I like to see, personal battles that go on during a sporting event. I'm not really too particularly interested in what they have to say politically. Now, it's fine. I don't dismiss it. If somebody comes out and tells me what their thoughts are publicly, it's fine. But I'm of the opinion that, where then does an individual go who's looking for an escape outside of the world of sports? Now, you could say, John, you're being really naive. This is the most pressing issue of the day. But I really feel like if I wanted to go down that road and really think about things politically, I could go find, individuals to go talk about it. I can find information to go research. I don't feel like Stan Van Gundy, telling me his thoughts about immigration and things like that and his thoughts about refugees is that profound to me that it would sway my opinion like, oh my gosh, if I was against it to say I'm now against, what Donald Trump is doing. I have an opinion about it. It's been formed based upon education and whatever it is, I just, talk about it to people that are in my inner circle. But in the world of sports, I just feel like coaches, athletes, actors should just kind of keep those opinions to themselves, and they really should understand the platform that they have. Yes, they can enact social change, and I really believe what Stan Van Gundy said was, he really kind of looked at himself and felt down that he didn't take the opportunities in the past to use his platform to change. But he also has to realize that, okay, you have now this platform, and you're going to go out there and let people know what your stance is. But you're really saying to us that your thoughts, your opinions should influence what someone should do? Yeah, see, I just don't believe that. I'm just of the opinion that Stan Van Gundy is the president of the Detroit Pistons, and his platform socially, his platform should just be talking about, doing the right things, should be about community, should be about improving community. I don't know, I don't know personally if I'm looking to Stan Van Gundy to tell me his thoughts about refugees and immigration reform. I don't know. Maybe it is dismissive. Maybe it is kind of limiting, putting somebody in a box. But I just look at it like for me. And when I put out a poll on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, right now with over 300 votes, it's about 70-30 in the favor of, people wanting athletes and coaches to just stick to sports. And I can agree with them wholeheartedly. I just think that right now we're in a very divisive time. I do believe we need to come together, and sports has the ability to bring us together. We get together and watch competitive sports. We get together and have a good time. Everybody's going to get together this Sunday and watch the Super Bowl. I just think that, these coaches and these athletes need to maybe tone it down just a little bit and realize that there are avenues, maybe in the off season. If you want to, maybe I'll compromise and say maybe in the off season, if you want to, in preparation for your season and you're interviewed and you're not in the midst of a season and you want to come out and tell us your opinions, then maybe that's the avenue and the proper place. Not that they don't have the right to talk about it, but maybe it's not the proper place in season to talk about it. And as I'm talking about it, right here in the podcast, I'm kind of working my way through it. And I think that that's probably the best compromise I can come up with. Maybe during the season when your focus should be on performing at your absolute best for your team and organization, maybe that's not the proper time to speak your mind. And maybe, you can maybe reserve your thoughts and opinions on things. But I know many will say, well, hey, the issue with immigration could get a lot worse by the summertime. And when would a guy like Stan Van Gundy be able to come out and say things? And maybe, just maybe, Stan Van Gundy needs to maybe look in the mirror too and realize that these kind of talks that he's having, whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree with me or not, potentially are causing a problem with his customers. Stan Van Gundy has to realize that he's the president of an organization that works with the public, okay? And so if you make comments like you have kind of being anti-Trump and anti-his policies, you are potentially going to alienate several people, and some of those people are going to be your paying customers. Now, in the business sense, that's never a good thing because any dollar that is potentially lost is never a good thing in business. So business-wise, I don't think it's a good idea for these athletes to come out because, in business, you want to be able to work with everybody. You want to be able to get the dollars out of everybody. And when you limit your dollars from a certain sect of people, whether you agree with them or not, it usually goes against the tenets of business. So that's just another perspective that you can take on it is that, yes, they are individuals with a voice. Yes, they do have a large platform, but I would really believe that they could probably even do a lot better job of saying, hey, this is what you can do for your community, maybe on a smaller level. Because what really can Stan Van Gundy do in this situation? He can state his dissent. He can verbally state that he is against Donald Trump. But does that mean that that's going to, rally a lot of people to protest and really overturn some of these things? Maybe he feels like it might, and maybe he feels that that is his personal responsibility. Just for me sitting here, I feel like, hey, I just need an outlet. I need sports to be an entity where you can go for escape, for entertainment, and for competition. And beyond that, during the season, I don't need much more. Do I say to myself, if Stan Van Gundy continues this, will I not pay to go to Pistons games? No, I respect the man. I respect his opinion, but it's just more of one of those things where I don't go to Stan Van Gundy for my beliefs on things. That's all. I don't go to athletes. I don't go to even politicians. I go to the library. I go to books. I go to newspapers. I go to trusted elders and things like that. So you find information in any way that you can, but you try your best to find factual information. And so you come to your opinions how you come to them. I just feel like athletes and people in power should not be the ones that are the influencers. They should be closer to you. They should be role models that you trust, and they should be individuals that you believe in and that you would go to bat for. And so that's just where I feel like politics should stand, because right now you see it on TV, you see it on YouTube. People are divisive, people are upset. And that was very interesting with the whole election thing, and is that many people were asked who they were going to vote for, but they really didn't reveal the truth because out of potential fear that they would face backlash and things like that. So why? Why in this country, if you are pro-Donald Trump, should you be made to feel like you are on the side of like corruption or on the side of being like almost like a terrorist? So I just think that in essence, I would just like more people to get along and be able to debate things politically. Like me and Vito on the Two Bad Hombres podcast. If you like to tune in on Saturdays, me and Vito go back and forth. We make fun of each other and have a good old time on this very network. But my thoughts are, I don't want to be blunt and rude and say stick to sports, but Stan Van Gundy, stick to sports. Now I'll take my first and last time out and attend to what some have called corporate activity, talking about the network and how you can support us. Stay with us. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you for your continued support and allowing us to keep the studio lights on, the microphones hot here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you like what you're listening to, you like the variety of podcasts that you hear, definitely check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. That's the easiest way to support us. You get all the news from the network. You can check out the work from Vito, myself, all the guys that are putting out great content almost each and every day. And hey, if you're prone to shop online, click through that Amazon banner, go about your business, shop, and then when you're on that Amazon page, just bookmark it. Anytime at all that you make an online purchase, it kicks us back a little something and helps us keep this project going. We've been going strong since 2013, and that's been largely due to the support of our supporters, and we greatly appreciate it. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Yes, sir. Thanks again for supporting us and finding us across our various platforms. Now, to end the podcast, there was one thing that came up last week. Now, in this podcast, I'm not going to really talk about the struggles of the Pistons, the struggles of the Red Wings, where the Lions are going to go. There's going to be later times in this week where I'll definitely get into that with the fellas. But by myself, I definitely like to talk about some topics that are near and dear to me and kind of relate to some things that I've been through and what some of the guys here at the network have been through. So last week, Darren Rovell put out a tweet that really sparked a lot of debate, and we're going to talk about it throughout the week here on the network. I know me and Vito will talk about it. So in essence, Darren Rovell, ESPN business reporter, he's all over Twitter, and he came out with a tweet last week where, a Chicago newspaper used an AP news service to write a story regarding a Northwestern college basketball game, I believe. And so what newspapers do is, if you don't know, is sometimes if you look at the Detroit News and you click on an article, it's not an article written by somebody that's actually employed there at the paper. It'll just be like from the city, then it'll say AP, and it'll just be, the Associated Press writing things and allowing it to be spread throughout the entire country. And it's done for probably lower level college basketball games that, newspapers don't really want to send and pay a reporter to go out and cover. And so Darren Rovell said, hey, why would a newspaper use an AP outlet to write this story when, hey, just go to a student and he'd probably write it for free? And so that lit off a firestorm. People were subtweeting them, reacting. Everybody in the media field kind of started telling their stories. And of course, I weighed in. And if you want to know what I thought, you can go to our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. But in terms of free work and things like that, the way I look at it is, prior to starting a business, I definitely would have been on the side of the media that said, hey, you should pay interns and you should, really reward people for their work. But then, unfortunately, I had to and was forced to start my own businesses based upon things that were going on in my life. So I now have 3 of them going at the same time: a psychology practice, real estate, and a podcast business going on. So when you start your own business, let alone 3, you realize that, everything costs money, and everything that you pay out that is not coming in is an expense. And so if you can get some things done at a cheaper level, then, hey, you might as well take advantage of it. Now, unfortunately, it stinks when you really talk about people that you pay as being an expense that you don't want to incur. But in essence, if you can find somebody to do a reasonable job for $10 an hour versus somebody that you would find to pay the job for $22 an hour, most business people are going to take the expense of $10 because, hey, then if you can, reasonably make some money on it, then you would probably be able to make some money for yourself. And in business, unfortunately, that's the name of the game. And I think the perspective that people don't have from the business side of things is that business is a non-emotional thing. As a business person, you're taught and you look at the bottom line. Period. There's no emotion. There's none of this, do you have sentiment for this or sentiment for that? If you're somebody that goes into business and you're emotional, you're likely to struggle mightily. And that's just a fact. And that's why I probably struggled early on in business, because I was too emotional. I would play the game of like, hey, I feel for this or I feel for that. In essence, business is a bottom line thing. And unfortunately, it's cold. It's not nice. It's one of those things where you just got to look at it. And so people will ask, well, do you pay the guys here at the podcast? The ones that do good work, the ones that put out effort. And just to talk about it, and I'll talk about it with Vito directly to his face when I look forward to talking to him later in the week. But a guy like Vito will message me 3-4 times a day. Hey, I want to do a Super Bowl podcast. Hey, I want to talk about Detroit Mercy. Hey, I got this guy. Hey, I got that guy. And literally you can see the excitement, the passion that he has for a project. And so a guy like that you root for. A guy like Vito is a guy that you want to expose, you want to work to get opportunities for. A guy like my cousin Adam, a guy that stuck with me through the beginning of the project, is a guy that I went to bat for. Every time someone comes to me with an opportunity to go on the air, I never really take it for myself. And I could say, hey, listen, it's all me. I did everything. I got this off the ground. I created social media. I did this. I did that. But I don't really do that. Not overtly, but what I do is I try to, and whenever an opportunity comes up, because I know my cousin lives and breathes for this broadcasting, I try to get him the opportunities when possible. And so when it was such an honor to have him go on WDFN and, do an hour with Neil Rule. And it was really cool. It was like one of those things where I was like, sweet, it's an opportunity for Adam to go practice his thing, to go on the air and maybe have somebody hear him and provide an opportunity. Did Adam get paid to go talk to Neil Rule? No. Did we do it? Of course, because Neil Rule is a guy that understands what it's like. He understood that, hey, we provided him with, some help by retweeting his stuff. We had him in here at the Sterling Heights office. We did a one-on-one. And so when the opportunity came, he repaid the favor. And you don't really see that too often with people, where you do something for them and then right away the first couple chances they have to do something for you, they take the chance. It's really nice. It's really one of those things that I cherish greatly because that's what it's about. And he recognized it. A guy like Neil recognized it that, hey, these guys don't have to retweet my stuff. They don't have to support me. They just do it. And when we have an opportunity maybe to help, he had us on WDFN. He talked about the podcast. And it was one of those things where he didn't pay us. He didn't pay me and Adam to show up to the studio. I should have asked for money. Maybe we would have got it. But it's one of those things where I believe if you really want to get into broadcasting and you want to do something great, it's okay to do some things for free. Now, I definitely understand the other side where people say, hey, I got to pay the bills, so I can't afford to be an intern and never make any money. But what everyone said that kind of supported what Darren Rovell said was, hey, several media delivered pizza. Several media did jobs that paid nothing. Several people took on tasks in order to make ends meet. And so if you're really driven to do something and you really want to go out there and make it happen, then you just go do it and you don't worry about the money. And I think that's probably the best attitude and the best way to look at it is if you're trying to do anything, whether you want to be a manager of a store, or you want to do your own business, or you want to start a podcast and make it the best thing that it can be, is you got to put time in, you got to learn, you got to be humble, you got to learn from people that are better than you, and you got to just go out there and try and do it. Now, if we listen to the many people here that told us you'd never make it in a podcast, it's just an internet thing, and you'd look at it like, oh, that's just, or that's just a bastardized version of broadcasting, then we never would have gotten this far with the project. We started in September 2013, and we were able to grow it because we like broadcasting. We like going out there and talking, and we like interviewing those that we respect here in Detroit. We like talking about sports in our free time. So why not take advantage of it, maybe make a little bit of money on it, and have some fun with it? So we set goals, and we tried to achieve it. Now, if we thought early on, the first maybe 85 shows that Adam and I did, and we said, oh, we didn't make a single penny on it, and quit the project, then we wouldn't have been able to, bear the fruits that we've had the last, 110 that we've done. And it's been great. It's been something that I know Adam, when he listens to this, and I know when the guys that have been part of this that have worked hard, they feel it. I mean, literally, they get to talk to the media in town. They get to talk to the people they respect. They get opportunities now to go out there to events and cover them and write about them and, start meeting people that we respect. And that's how we did it. We went out there and just started asking, hey, can we go out there and cover your event? Hey, can we go out there and, do this? And we tweeted during almost every game for the better part of 2 years. And that's the way we believe you go about your business. And I believe that if you're an individual and you want to get into broadcasting, and for what it's worth, you could say, hey, you're just an idiot. You're just a psychologist out here just talking into a mic. All I can say is I've been able to take a podcast from the ground up with my cousin and a crew of people. And we've had individuals come through here. And I can give you an example. People will message me every single day. Hey, I want to do a podcast. Okay, send me a tape. Nothing. You don't hear anything from them anymore. Okay, send me 3 minutes of your best work. If someone said that to me, if I was an individual and I got a chance to call up a ticket and say, hey, I want to get on the air, and they said, make me a tape, I'd drop everything that minute, make a 3-minute tape, and try to send it in within an hour. But people will get back to me 2 weeks later, things come up, they don't do it, or they try their best to maybe, ask 1,000 questions in an effort to, get my time to try and help them do it. And I go, you know what? It's not worth it. I don't think you're going to make it. So it's one of those things where if somebody's giving you an opportunity and they tell you, hey, I think you could go about it this way, maybe you should listen to them. Maybe you should try it. Or maybe you should show some initiative. That's all. And I think a tweet that Adam Carolla sent out encapsulated everything that I said here in the last about 10, 15 minutes. That's a podcast that I listen to every day. The inspiration for a lot of my ideas, Adam Carolla's podcast is probably the best one out there. So if you're starting to, look to a podcast in town, look to the Detroit Sports Podcast, look to Drew and Mike. They're killing it. And, props to the Drew and Mike podcast, because when Drew Lane, was unceremoniously let go of his job at Detroit Sports 105.1, he probably waited around a little bit and said, hey, I got the itch. And he started podcasting. And anybody that gets into the game of podcasting that can elevate it the way a Drew Lane can, my goodness, it's great for everybody. Because look, Drew Lane is now making money doing his podcast. Just listen, within 3 minutes, he's talking about, who's sponsoring his studio. So he's smart and he's taking advantage of the platform. And at first, I know he probably didn't like it, the idea of doing it from your basement. But look what he's done. Look what podcasts have been able to do. So it is a viable medium. And if you're interested in broadcasting, give it a shot. But, Adam Carolla summed it up best with something that he said on the Adam and Dr. Drew show that aired December 20th, 2016. And he said, it doesn't take anything to get ahead in this country. All you have to do is put your head down and bust your butt because you have so many lazy, stupid, self-entitled, arrogant pieces of shit snowflakes around you. All you have to do is show a little initiative. Penned Adam Carolla. That's all I really got to say on that is that, all you can do is look at what's going on here at the podcast. You've had people been here doing podcasts 190 episodes strong each and every week. They go on vacation. They still want to do a podcast. You got a guy like Vito who will message, me 6-7 times with 8-9 different ideas and he'll show initiative. And you have others that, do a dozen podcasts and they're concerned they're not getting paid. Okay, what are you going to do with that? So you see how that story rolls out, and you can message me if you want further details. That's how some people think, and I just don't believe that's probably the best way to go. So whatever side you're on with Darren Rovell, I do believe that if you do good work and you're passionate and you show some initiative, somebody will find you and they'll keep you around. I guarantee it, because a guy like Vito, a guy like Jason, a guy like Adam, those are guys I want to keep around. Other guys, I really don't want to keep around, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you for listening to another episode. I know this podcast wasn't about the Pistons and Wings and all that, sports heavy type stuff, but I got a little philosophical and I got a little preachy on this episode. But hey, sometimes when you got a chance to spend a half hour talking about things that you like, that's what you talk about. So thank you for listening. Hey, if you want to leave feedback, good or bad, message us at Detroit Podcast. We read each and everything that's sent to us, and we love it. Thank you very much. We'll see everybody next time.
Okay, nice idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.